This is the Raidmax Gama, $70 tempered glass panel ATX mid-tower case from Raidmax. It comes in either white, orange, green, or black, with the white variant sporting a Stormtrooper-esque vibe to it. The last case I reviewed from Raidmax was the Sigma case, which I absolutely loved, and it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen that review before. Anyways, let's get into this review. What's up guys, my name is JD from JDTechGear and welcome back to the channel. So the case market, I feel, is in a weird transitional phase. It has been stagnated for some time now with some tempered glass and occasional RGB accents, but no bold designs have stood out in a while, at least that I'm aware of, that don't cost over $300, with a few exceptions to a couple of cases. The Gamma case isn't too far from the ordinary since the internal frame mostly plays it safe and isn't really anything to rave about. Although I do think the exterior of this case is quite eye-catching. The exterior is probably going to be something you either love or hate because of its styling. I for one primarily like this case basically for the aesthetic appeal and decent functionality, with decent airflow coming from the front and top so that the case isn't purely form over function. This has been a trend for a while with most of the Raidmax cases, as they all have decent airflow design at the least, so I always applaud them for that. Anyways, the exterior is completely plastic, which is fine. Nothing broke while using this case and it all works well. The front reminds me of a grill or a mask of some sorts, which is pretty neat, and the combination of the white panels have that Stormtrooper look to them, at least in my opinion. The front panel can be a bit tough to remove, but don't be afraid to put some force on it. You'll have to remove the top portion first, then you'll be able to remove the lower portion. There's clearance for external fan mounting on the top portion, but the bottom can't do the same. There's no real dust filters on the front paneling. The lower portion has some mesh material, but that's about it. The top panel pops off nice and easy and is fully detached from the front I/O, which is nice. The top panel also has a mesh material like the front lower portion, but not a full-on dust filter, unfortunately. Also, the front I/O on the top is made of plastic and feels plasticky itself and cheap when pressing the power and restart button, but the button itself is satisfying to push, so that remains pretty neutral to me. Other than that, it's a pretty basic I/O. There's the typical audio jacks and the two USB 3.0 ports with no Type-C ports, so yeah, there's that. The TG panel removes via 4 thumb screws, which is fine. I would like to see some easier panel removal eventually, but this will do. The glass is good quality and has the black handling bars on the outer edge. The internal frame is pretty basic in terms of what you've probably seen in a case before, and if you haven't, most of them look like this. The internal frame is wide open, has a power supply basement and a cutout at the bottom for fan placement, although radiator support might be a bit tricky, but is doable. Speaking of which, this case either supports 3 120 or 140mm fans up front and top, and one 120mm fan in the rear, which is included with the case. Rad support is the same with either 240, 280, or 360mm rads on the front and top, and a single 120mm rad in the rear. So fan and rad support is great for this case, which goes into saying that this case is 499mm tall, 221mm wide, and 508mm long. Supports ATX, micro ATX, mini ATX, and weighs 16 pounds, which is pretty light for this size. The case has excellent clearance for an ATX motherboard, especially up on top. There is plenty of room to fit your hands around the CPU cooler and install cables, which is something that has become a rarity for me, surprisingly. In terms of build quality, it's okay for the most part. The only solid quality item is the tempered glass, which is fine. The internal frame is fine as well. It's not super wobbly. The case feet are cheap plastic and slide way too easily on a hard surface, and for some reason the expansion slots are break-offs. The top expansion slot isn't, but the others are, and this really doesn't make much sense to me, but either way, this shouldn't be present on a $70 case. Additionally, there's no rubber grommets. For the price tier, they should definitely be on this case, unless there's a bunch of value provided elsewhere. I don't see why cases in this price range don't include them. Rubber grommets aren't that expensive and can be bought through third parties easily, but it should come with the case. Cable management is good for this case. There's cutouts in all the appropriate places, and thankfully there's a protrusion in the rear side panel for cables, because there's barely any depth to the rear of the chassis for cables. There isn't a lot of tie down points either, but the rim around the motherboard has slits around it and can be used as a tie down, so it does make up for it in some sense. Also located on the back is 2 SSD tray mounts and 2 3.5-inch HDD mounting trays, which are compatible for SSDs as well, so storage support is pretty standard. Building in the case was a breeze and very enjoyable. Like I said earlier, the clearance at the top of the case gave me plenty of space to have my hands work with the CPU cooler and cables. Not all of the standoffs were installed, so that is worth noting, but not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. Temps inside the case are good. Like I said, it is decent airflow coming from the front and top, and the temps are mostly the same with the panels on and off the case. The Raidmax Gama plays it safe for the most part, with exception to the exterior styling in my opinion. The internal frame is very standard among a wide array of cases, but the exterior looks nice and shows off your components nicely, as well with a slight tint in the tempered glass. As far as quality, it's decent. The case definitely gets the job done in terms with clearance and building it, but some other forms of quality are missing from the case. The snap-off expansion slots, the cheap plastic feet, the use of only one dust filter on the bottom of the case, which is held in with metal tabs, and no rubber grommets. Overall, for $70, this case is good, but not great for its value. The Inwin 101 is a $70 case too, but a little harder to build in, and it has some clearance issues, but offers higher quality and more innovation for comparison. Either way, the Raidmax Gama is a functional case and a good one too. I would pay $60 for it compared to the $70 price tag, but for $10 more, you could go with the Raidmax Sigma, which is a noticeable gain in quality compared to the Gama. So all in all, the Gama is a good case with unique exterior appeal, but leaves a bit desired in terms of quality for me. If you're interested in the Gama case, there's a link for it down in the description below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and let me know what you all want to see more of from the channel down in the comments. If you're new here and you want to see more videos like this one, consider checking out the rest of the channel and subscribing. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.